Welcome back. Every day at noon on the TD Web Broker platform, Greg Bonnell hosts Money Talk Live, featuring many well-known guests, and that's a place where you get to ask Greg the questions, and Greg will ask those questions to his guests live. And he joins me now with some highlights from some recent shows. You've had some good ones.
Lots of interesting stuff to talk about these days, including, I know, earlier in the program, you're talking about this stubbornly high interest rate environment. We had Michael O'Brien, Managing Director at TD Asset Management, on earlier this week. And I thought, okay, in this stubbornly high interest rate environment, it is interesting over the past couple of months what's happened to some of the big blue chip names. The dividend payers are supposed to be steady eddies on the TSX. You're talking about telecom companies, utilities, and they've been under pressure in terms of their stock price. So we sort of started there with Michael, and he said, yeah, definitely in this kind of rate environment, you're not seeing a lot of love for these dividend-paying names right now. But he thinks heading into next year, if you're the kind of investor who likes dividends and dividends growth, the energy space could be interesting. Have a listen. Get your view on the Canadian energy stocks. This has been an interesting one, obviously, because crude's been bouncing around quite a bit lately.
So we already discussed the pipelines and midstream names, Enbridge and TC Energy earlier, so I'm going to exclude them. They're an important chunk of the energy names. I'll just focus more on the oil and gas producers. I think the outlook there is very positive. That's one of the that's been one of the things that's really been supporting the Canadian market over the last couple months, is with oil prices ticking back up. The oil names particularly, but just across the space, they've been performing very well. So they've become leadership in the last couple months. In terms of the outlook heading into 2024, obviously there's some question marks about how strong the global economy is going to be, and that will have some impact on demand. Supply seems to be in pretty good shape in the sense that OPEC is exercising its role as the market, the market leader, or the Saudis have been managing their own supply to maintain a solid price level, and management teams here in North America continue to be very disciplined about how much they're going to reinvest, how much of the cash flow they're putting back into the ground versus giving us. And so I think the outlook for the Canadian, the big Canadian players going into 2024, provided that oil prices stay in this current range and the $75 to $85 level, I think the outlook is very positive, because a lot of the key players, Canadian Natural Resources, Cenovus, Suncor, Meg Energy, they're all about to hit these debt target levels they had set for themselves over the next 2-3 quarters, whereby they then go to paying out roughly 100% of their free cash flow, which means you can expect very healthy shareholder returns, be it share buybacks, stock dividends, special dividends, increases to the base dividend. So I think the outlook there is quite positive heading into 2024, and it could be one of these situations where in a market and a period of time where growth is hard to find, where there might not be the usual big dividend increases we like to expect from other sectors, this is one pocket of the market where you should see some really handsome shareholder returns, either buybacks or dividends.
That's fascinating. Part of Greg's job is to find all the really interesting. That is a really interesting news. Now, reminder to everyone: do your own research. Like, you have to figure it out. But just the idea that just that debt servicing is going to be done, and then they've got money, and what are they going to do with that in return to shareholders? And it's all that discipline of, I guess, us moving more towards a green economy, and there's less oil out there, so they've kind of been managing themselves. And then layer on top of that, if you have a higher oil price, that's coming in the next little while too, they will see some benefit of that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, they've definitely shown they have an appetite for not so much exploration for new oil resources, but returning money to shareholders. So that's probably, perhaps, everything's,
That's
contingent.
the most interesting thing I've heard today.
The most interesting thing Oh, I'm feeling pretty good about bringing that one. Okay, I'm going to see if I can match it now, because I got more for you. Of course, artificial intelligence made such a big splash earlier this year with ChatGPT. Everyone got excited, and then some people think, is it all just hype? Is it this? Is it all just about computers? The whole point of the show is taking questions from the audience. That was a question that Michael O'Brien was answering. We also had Juliana Faircloth on the show, Vice President and Portfolio Research at TD Asset Management. We were talking industrials. So she took a question basically about how AI could impact the industrial space. Much change in the sense of people saying, oh yeah, AI, it goes into everything.
I think that's typically the story within industrials, and I think about it, from an industrial perspective, but also just broadly for businesses. I mean, the opportunities for AI on the cost side as well as the revenue side are pretty interesting. On the cost side, there's a lot of opportunity for automation. If we think about within the industrial landscape, there's a lot of manufacturing companies where they will see a big benefit from being able to automate some of the functions within their facilities. That in turn is also a revenue opportunity for companies that provide robotics or sell automation tools, control systems. So that's kind of over the long term a potential growing end market within industrials related to AI. The other end market where I think we've seen some activity that's quite AI driven is on data centers. So companies in the industrial landscape that are exposed to data centers, whether they sell electrical equipment, whether they sell heating and cooling that goes into data centers that generate a lot of heat, that's been a topical part of the industrial landscape as it relates to AI as well, and we're seeing growth there from a data center perspective.
Yeah, so AI more than just microchips. Of course, we continue to have guests on a daily basis. Next year, we're going to have, next year we'll have some good ones, but next week, got Here in a Min coming on, Jennifer Nowski. Wednesday, remember, is Bank of Canada Decision Day. Will they or won't they? It'll be a big one. We'll have Andrew Kelvin on from TD Securities to break it all down for us.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Again, you can catch them every day, noon on TD's Web Broker. That's it for us. Thanks so much for watching, and we do hope to see you again next week.
The preceding paid commercial program was brought to you by TD Wealth.